Alright YouTube, so we're here to finally break down the last and final trailer right before the launch of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Right before we hop into it, not really any smaller bits of news, just want to shout out that we did a reaction video to the trailer yesterday if you haven't not checked it out. Like an actual reaction video where like I'm a tiny little picture in the bottom right corner and the actual trailer's playing behind me. Like we actually figured out how to do it finally. So with that out of the way, let's hop right into the trailer breakdown. So the trailer opens up with Cloud and Aerith talking at the Sector 6 Slums Park, and she's talking about the rank that Cloud has in Soldier First Class, obviously, and how it's the same rank as the guy she first loved, obviously referencing Zack.
So, Cloud, you were a Soldier First Class, right?
Yeah.
Weird.
Really? What's weird about it?
Nothing. Just that you were the same rank.
Huh? As who?
The first guy I ever loved.
Now, this conversation isn't anything new that happened in the original game. The only real difference is that in the original game, Aerith was sitting on the left on top of the slide, and Cloud was on the right. Next up, we get our first look, I believe, at Elmira, who's Aerith's adoptive mother. She's talking about Aerith being an ancient, and we also get a flashback of whenever Aerith was a lot younger, and Song informs her also that she's an ancient.
Aerith is an ancient. Probably the last one living.
You know you're not just any little girl. You're a descendant of the ancients.
You're wrong! I'm not an ancient!
We then get the scene at the well in Nibelheim where Tifa asks Cloud that once he joins Soldier, if she's ever in trouble, will he come and save her? And then it cuts to an older Tifa laying next to her dying or dead father at the hands of Sephiroth, which is a part of the Nibelheim flashback.
If I'm ever trapped or in trouble, promise you'll come and save me.
Sephiroth. Soldiers. I'm sick of this.
We then get a somewhat surprising scene simply because it did not exist in the original game's Midgar segment. It is a scene from the original game, just been moved around obviously for the remake, but it's Cloud talking to his mom. Also, Cloud's mom is high-key a MILF, and it makes sense now why Cloud is so pretty.
I've never been so proud. Women must be hounding you day and night.
Following that, we get the dinner scene with Jesse's parents, which is something we'd heard about from the developers as sort of an example of one of the new things that are in the remake that didn't exist in the original game. So it's kind of cool to see it.
I'd really love to stay and chat, but we gotta go.
So soon?
Now these guys, I'm not entirely sure who they are. I think that they're like a modern interpretation of the bandit enemies from the original game, just with their own cutscene, but they do have these like logos on their face masks, so I'm not entirely sure. They could be like named characters from the extended universe. We know that they're referencing like random novels and things that not a lot of people have read. Next up, we get a scene with a couple of Don Corneo's henchmen in the battle arena thing, and I can't remember the dude in green's name, but the other guy, the African-American fellow's name is Koch, and I learned something new looking up his name. There's a missable scene you can actually get in Final Fantasy VII whenever you're able to come back to a wall market and go to Don Corneo's mansion. It's empty, and Koch is actually tied to like the sex dungeon table in the bottom. Been playing this game most of my life, never knew that scene existed.
Till they vomit blood!
And I just want to mention this because I said something about it in my reaction video. Whoever's voice acting Chocobo Sam, to me, sounds 100% like the guy that voiced Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Tails, you lose.
We then get a scene with Barrett and Marlene, which I'm always ready for a fields trip. This is the scene where I believe we leave her with Elmira, which takes place, I think, right before we go and rescue Aerith. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I'm sorry, honey. I wish I didn't have to.
Next up, we get a very brief scene of a news report, which is possibly the modern interpretation of the news report we've seen in the bottom of the 7th Heaven bar in the original game.
Shinra has confirmed the reactor to be the target of the bomb.
Next up, we get a brief scene with two old guys, and I did not recognize either of them in my reaction video, but somebody pointed out that I believe the first guy right here with the beige-colored outfit, based on the character model from the original game, is Mayor Domino in the Shinra building. Not exactly sure who this other guy is, though.
I presume.
You mean you're not here to give President Shinra his comeuppance?
We then get the meeting with the Shinra higher-ups, Hojo, Scarlet, Reeve, President Shinra, probably Heidegger, maybe even Palmer, I don't remember from the original game exactly. And they're talking about Neo Midgar, which is them searching for the Promised Land.
Words, Reeve. Neo Midgar.
We see an anime motorcycle fight between Rosh and Cloud. In my reaction video, I didn't recognize who this older chick was, and I still don't. More than likely, she's just some kind of random NPC in the Sector 7 slums, but what's important is what's being said here, and this is a spoiler. They talk about the damn Sector 7 plate falling.
They're going to drop the plate on us?
Yes.
We get a quick scene of the Watchmen of Fate, but also Red 13 is there, which means it's got to take place sometime within or around the Shinra building, since that's where we get him at.
Whispers, perhaps best described as arbiters of fate.
We get a quick scene with Hojo, and then we get our first look at the sample boss enemy. I think in my reaction video I referred to him as Specimen. I got the name wrong, but I did get the boss right. This is the one we fight right after getting Red 13. With this scene right here, we get another reference to Shinra dropping the Sector 7 plate.
The sector in which you stand has been condemned.
We seemingly get another one-on-one fight with Cloud and Rude, which we've seen with the Tokyo Game Show trailer, and similar to that, this is brand new. There was no one-on-one fights with Rude, I don't even think at all in the original Final Fantasy VII, but definitely not in the Midgar segment. We then finally get our first look at Rufus Shinra. He looks great, the type of guy to steal your girl and you apologize to him, but something I pointed out in my reaction video is, to me, if you listen to his voice, tell me that does not sound like George Newbern, the guy that used to do Sephiroth.
Which, of course, would mean that I own you.
I will never be a memory.
And look, I'm not saying it is George Newbern. It wouldn't make sense for him to come to this project and not voice Sephiroth, but it sounds so similar to him that it's like, why didn't this guy just do the new Sephiroth? Speaking of Sephiroth, we then get a scene with him and Cloud, and I made a joke about this in my reaction video, like, is he standing on something? Because he's like a whole foot taller than Cloud.
After suffering, you will grow strong. Isn't that what you want?
We then get a pretty good look at the Motorball fight, but I think he's called Moto now, like M period, O period, so on and so forth. But a lot of people wanted to talk about and highlight where Red 13 refers to Barrett as a 300-pound sack of shit.
You see the piece of shit we're driving here?
Says the 300-pound sack of it.
Hey!
But the boss fight itself looks pretty damn good, man. It looks like they definitely stepped it up. This is a boss fight from the original game that gets a lot of hate. A lot of the community do not like Motorball, and it seems like they definitely tried to make him interesting now. We get some random gameplay and or cutscenes of Cloud traversing some Mako reactors. We then get a very quick scene of Cloud carrying a basket of flowers with Aerith. This is either a story segment or like a side quest or something like that, but it's definitely around Aerith's house. We then get another very quick scene of Aerith carrying a little girl, but since we're seeing other NPCs running, my guess is we're trying to get people out of Sector 7 before the plate drops. We then get another very brief scene of Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett working their way down to the Shinra building. The reason we know it's the Shinra building is because of those red sculpture things out by the entrance. We get a scene of Cloud turning something off, and my guess is this is a Sector 5 reactor where we can go around weakening Airbuster, turning these things off. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I've never watched the Airbuster gameplay that's out there. We then finally, after all these years, get to see Hell House, and it's crazy to think that he's actually, we're going to fight this thing. He's in the Don Corneo battle arena thing, which means he's probably not a random encounter anymore or anything like that. It seems to be a mini-boss of sorts. And we see that he has the ability to disable one of your teammates, similar to how the Guard Scorpion can grab like Cloud and you gotta use Barrett to get him free, or how like Apps and some of the other enemies can step on a character. We then get some more of Rufus and Cloud, but we actually get some gameplay this time, which is pretty awesome. This isn't necessarily like an iconic boss fight from the original game, but it's one that obviously everybody remembers. We then learn that President Shinra cheats at GoldenEye 007 because everyone knows the Golden Guns ban. We then get the scene of what appears to be Sephiroth stabbing Barrett. People were kind of mixed on this in the comments of my reaction video. Some people think that he's just maybe punching Barrett in the stomach, or it's edited a certain way to where it looks like he's stabbing him. But to me, he's very clearly stabbing. You see Sephiroth ready the sword, lunge at Barrett, and then the sword is sticking out of the middle of Barrett's back. I think it's pretty obvious he's being stabbed. We then get the scene of Rufus hanging from the helicopter, which takes place right after the boss fight with him, at least in the original game.
Tonight marks a new beginning for Shinra.
We then get this pretty cool scene of the group staring down a wall of like Watchmen of Fate, and they're staring at a glowing light. And what's interesting is Red 13 says this could well be our last line of defense, as in something they could use to fight the Watchmen of Fate, Sephiroth, whoever, whatever. What I'm thinking of when I see a glowing white light that they're walking towards, the first thing that comes to mind for me is holy.
This could well be her last line of defense. Let's go.
The next to last scene, we see Sephiroth going Super Saiyan or something. I don't know. It's a brand new scene that did not exist in the original game, but I initially thought that this was Meteor Fall, and having watched it back now, I think that's what it is. And the reason why I think that is, for one, this absolutely looks like a meteor crashing down on the planet, but I also noticed this like flame spiral thing on the left over here, which is something that was actually in the original game. Whenever meteors coming down and crashing on Midgar, there's all these red spirals going up into the sky. Now, if that is what's happening here, it's not really surprised. We've seen them reference Meteor with that TV commercial we talked about however long ago that was, a week or two or whatever. And then we have the final scene right here, which I kind of hyped up with my reaction video. We are about to enter super spoiler territory. Click away if you do not want to watch this. This right here, this character we're looking at, that's overlooking Midgar, surrounded by the Watchmen of Fate, is Zack Fair. Yes, you heard me correctly. Zack Fair, the character that died prior to the events of Final Fantasy VII, the character that Cloud models in his entire life after, the character that gave Cloud the Buster Sword. Now, while we know this is Zack Fair's, for one, the very similar outfit to Cloud with the kind of puffy pants or whatever, but he's very clearly equipped with the Buster Sword, difference being the blade points to the right, which is exactly how Zack equips the Buster Sword and carries it on his back. And if you watch some gameplay, you can see clearly that Cloud equips it to where the blade of the Buster Sword is pointing to the left. Now, when I first heard about this, I thought Zack was just, like, alive, like he had never died. But if you pay attention to the very beginning, you see, like, the Watchmen of Fate like mist, and you see those like live stream particles or whatever they are. So I believe what is happening here is something or someone is bringing Zack back to life from the live stream. Why, who, what, I don't know. This seems to be in-game stuff. You see that the Watchmen of Fate have surrounded Midgar. We've seen at the end of the highway scene that they're like attacking the Shinra building. I literally have no idea what this means. Is he just coming back to help us at like the end of the game? Are they setting him up for the sequel? Is that going to be like a playable character that we have in Remake Part 2? I have no idea, but regardless, this is a major retcon, obviously. There was never any Zack in the original game outside of flashbacks. And there you have it, YouTube, my breakdown of the last and final trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Obviously, as people said, there's a lot of spoilers in this trailer, and that definitely seems to be the case, especially with what we just talked about. If that is the case, if that's what's really happening, man, why would they show that in a trailer, dude? Why would they give away him returning? Anyways, the video is long enough, so I want to pass off to you guys. What do you think of this final trailer for the remake? And we are so close to the launch, man. I've had a lot of stuff spoiled for me, which does suck, but it's not really going to necessarily ruin my enjoyment of the game. It's nice to go into the game not knowing certain things are going to happen, but here we are. That's the state of the world. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay updated with more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @dashingdavid, at my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Give me a smile, give me forever for a while, give me forever for a while. Quit acting like a baby, or at least less like a child. Give me serenity.